In this video, I would like to talk about an anime that I feel like really needs a second season. And yes, I know that there are a lot of anime, many shows that a lot of fans feel like need a second season or deserve a second season. But in this video, I'd like to talk about an anime that I feel like most people have never heard of, or it's not that popular, I should say. The anime is called Cestvs The Roman Fighter. The show follows our protagonist, Cestvs, who is a young slave boy. He is forced into slavery, and as a slave, he is forced to fight. So in the show deals with slavery and how these slaves are at the bottom of society, as you know. So they're being forced to fight, and the only way for them to find freedom is to fight for it. So when they win a certain number of matches, I think it's like 1,000 if not 100 matches consecutively without losing, then their freedom is guaranteed. So the show follows Cestvs, who is a slave fighter, and also other boys who are slave fighters in Rome. The first episode of the show gives a really brutal reminder that Cestvs is a slave because he's forced to fight a slave boy, Rocco, who is his friend. And this fight did not end well. Cestvs obviously didn't want to fight Rocco because they're friends and they're also like in the same situation, right? They're both slave boys, so why would they want to fight each other anyway? But he's forced to fight him, and the fight did not end well, let's just say that, for Rocco at least. So this was a brutal reminder that they're just slaves and they're just pawns to these emperors and elite in Roman society. So they're just being forced to fight just to entertain them, to entertain the general public. So it was such a brutal reminder, and it was just so sad, like very unnecessary. Like there was really no need for them to fight, because in a way they're on each other's team. But you know how these things go. If the emperors or the rulers of Rome want the slaves to fight each other, then they really have no choice but to fight. Oh, by the way, Cestvs has a master who is teaching him how to fight. The fighting style that Cestvs fights is boxing, so his master is teaching him how to fight. But his master also serves as a handler in a way, like if Cestvs has to fight at a different location, he travels with him and like manages him in a way, not just Cestvs but also a bunch of slave boys. In a later episode, they introduce another character, Ruska, who potentially serves as a rival for Cestvs because Cestvs' master and Ruska's father were rivals, so in a way Cestvs and this boy will potentially become rivals. But since it was only just the first season of the show, this was not really explored very deeply, and we're also introduced to a boy who is potentially the emperor of Rome, who is actually even younger than Cestvs. And Ruska also mentions that he doesn't really seem like he's an emperor, he just seems like a regular guy because he doesn't fit the typical stereotype of an elite. So we're introduced to the emperor and some elites, his mother, the mother of the boy, who is also like I guess an empress or a queen in a way, whatever, but you get the point. We're introduced to some of the rulers in later episodes. So anyway, the empress forces Ruska and Cestvs to fight just for her amusement. Cestvs loses, and her son didn't really like this. He kind of panicked and he said he didn't even want to be an emperor, so he just left. And yeah, that's the end of that. So we're just introduced to Ruska and the other characters. We also get to see that Ruska uses a different fighting style than Cestvs. Ruska specializes in Pankration, and Pankration is like this mixed martial arts that just has different things like throws, grapples, punches and stuff. So it was interesting that they introduced Ruska's character as a rival because his fighting style is very different from Cestvs' fighting style. So all of these events between Cestvs, his master, and these emperors happened in Pompeii, so they traveled to Pompeii. Whilst in Pompeii, we're introduced to a wealthy, influential figure, Lady Sabina, who is just sort of like, her whole thing is just being beautiful and influential, I guess. So anyway, whilst we're introduced to her, we're also introduced to another slave. His name is Emden. He's an older slave. So initially in the show, all of the slaves were boys. So I thought that the show would just focus on slaves who are boys, like teenagers, right? But we can get to see that there are still some men who are slaves because they haven't won a consecutive number of matches. Like I said, your freedom is only guaranteed if you win a certain number of matches consecutively without losing. So we're introduced to Emden, and Emden has a crush on Lady Sabina, but let's be for real, like he's a slave and she's a rich person, so this would never work out. But it was interesting that the show managed to put that in. according to their culture and stuff and the way their society is set up, there's no way like a slave would ever be in a relationship with someone who is wealthy and influential, someone who is almost like a princess or a queen in a sense. So later on in the show, we get to see that Lady Sabina offers Cestvs a way of freedom, but Cestvs says no, he wants to fight his way to freedom using his own two hands. So she feels disrespected by this and chases him out of her court. So eventually she calls Emden, and then she tells him to really beat up Cestvs in their upcoming match. So there's an upcoming match between Cestvs and Emden, and in her own sick, twisted way, since she felt disrespected by Cestvs declining her offer, she tells Emden to completely beat him up, to be ruthless in their fight together. So we're getting ready to watch the next match, which will be Cestvs against Emden. So the fight between Cestvs and Emden was hype, but also highlighted one of the major issues that I had with this show. So most of the fighting scenes in this show kind of look like a cutscene from a video game. So because the animation is not really that good, it kind of makes the fight scene to be not as good as it could be. Like, the fight scenes have so much potential in this show, especially this particular fight between Cestvs and Emden. This could have been very hype and could have been a really great scene and a really great set of episodes, but the biggest issue is the animation. I guess the budget wasn't budgeting, and I don't really know the studio that made this show, produced this show. I guess maybe they just weren't able to animate it that well, but I would have really hoped that this one fight scene was like animated top notch, or like to the best of their ability. But yeah, that's the biggest issue that I had with watching this show. The fight scenes and the animation could be better. Like, in the first episode, the animation was good, I guess maybe because it was episode 1 and there weren't really that many fight scenes. But from episode 2 onward, even scenes that were not fight scenes had this sort of like video game cutscene kind of feel. So at times the show was not as interesting as it could be because of the animation, but I still feel like this show had such a great story that I was willing to overlook the animation. Like, the story is so entertaining that I was like, you know what, I'm still going to continue watching it, even though the animation is not really that good or that like high quality type animation that is found in a lot of anime that are of this kind. But yeah, so after the fight between Cestvs and Emden is over, we get to see Cestvs' master Zafar have a chat with Emden, and he finds out that Emden was trained by a mysterious man who he doesn't even know his name, but based on the description that Emden gave Zafar, this man was also Zafar's master. So this man is just a strange, mysterious man who's looking for potential fighters in the land and who's trying to develop their fighting style and trying to give them his techniques. We don't really know much about the man, but basically he's just somebody who is into fighting and who analyzes fighters and is just trying to like make his own fighting style, or just to be known as this really great master. Anyway, not much is known about him. And after this, they leave Pompeii, and Cestvs is celebrated by the people of Pompeii, and they make their exit and make their way to a new town. After reaching this new town, we get to see what else the slaves do other than just fighting all day long. So Cestvs and his friends are helping with building the road for this city. Like, since they're slaves, they're basically being used for manual labor for the construction of new roads. It was interesting to see that other than fighting and being in cages and being forced to fight, they also do other things, even though they're being forced like to construct the road, to help with the construction of the road. But it was interesting to see what else do they do other than just fighting, you know. So in this small city, we get to see that there is a small arena, so we get to see Cestvs fight some more, and also he's working on his physique because of excavating and building the road. He's getting bigger and stronger, so his fighting style is improving. So this was an interesting set of events. We also get to see Cestvs battle a popular gladiator at the small arena who is known as Felix. Again, a really interesting fight which would have been made better if the animation was better. As usual, I'm not going to complain again about the video game type cutscenes in the show, but it was still a great fight and an interesting fight. We also get to see Cestvs apply new fighting techniques taught to him by his master, and because of his improvement, because of the road construction. But all in all, still a great fight and still a good scene and great episode. After the fight at the small arena, Cestvs qualifies for a bigger tournament. Cestvs and the gang travel by boat to this tournament that is being held at Sicily. There in Sicily, he sees Ruska. Ruska is also there and will also be competing in the tournament. And this tournament is a major tournament because they're inviting fighters from various parts of the world, not just Rome. So there are a lot of fighters who are not Roman who will also be there at the tournament. We also get to see that Emden, who Cestvs fought against earlier, will also be there at the tournament. So this is where the show ends. The season 1 ends here, where they announce the tournament known as the Concordian Games. So Cestvs will be part of the Concordian Games. We get to see Cestvs have an interaction with Ruska. Ruska looks much bigger and older now than before, and this is where the story ends. So for me, this was such a good show. I really enjoyed this show because of the setting. I haven't really watched an anime that is set in a Roman Empire or in Rome in old times. So for me, I felt like that was really interesting. Aside from the animation, I really enjoyed the story, also seeing what life is like as a slave, what do slaves do, what do they go through, what are their experiences and all that. I haven't really seen a lot of anime deal with this. It's not really a common issue, I guess. Most anime writers or manga writers are not really interested in this, but it's really interesting seeing what slaves go through on a day-to-day basis, and this was something that I thought was really interesting and made me watch the show in the first place, because I was like, oh, he's just a teenage boy but he's a slave, let me watch it, maybe this story might be interesting. Definitely a show worth watching, and definitely a show that I feel like deserves the season 2. And one of the reasons why I feel like this show really needed a season 2 is because I just wanted to see it animated better. Like I said, story wise, I really find the show entertaining, and it's something that I still managed to watch despite the animation not being as best as it could be. But I really want this show to have a season 2, mostly because I just want to see it animated better, because story wise I have no issues. So this show is not really that popular, and till now there hasn't really been an update whether the show will have a season 2. I checked out the manga. I didn't really read the manga that much because I'm not really someone who reads manga that much like that, but I checked out the manga and the story has proceeded after the games. Like, there is a story that happens after this, I'm sure, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this is a show that I really feel like deserves a season 2. It may not be as popular or as big as other shonen anime that are here, that are popular, known worldwide and all that, but I still feel like shows like this, small shows, deserve a chance somewhere in the mix, you know. Anyway, that's all from me, and I hope you like this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and yeah, see you later and see you in the next one.